Good morning. Let us start our last lecture before the exam. Today we will make the review and please ask questions if you have. I think we have enough time, so if you have any question, please ask them either via chat or with a voice. Okay. The exam has 15 questions and so 10 points each. And the last 16th question will ask you to upload your scratch paper or shown work. So in case you answer wrong, I will look at the scratch papers for possible partial credits. Also, at least one question asks you to draw a graph on a number line, and that may be used as a bonus point. Okay. So the first question asks you to substitute a value of independent variable. So you are given a quadratic function, and we want to find, so f of x equals 5 plus 8x squared minus 2x, and we want to find f of -2. So at every occurrence of x in this formula, here and here, we substitute -2. 5 plus 8 times -2 squared minus 2 times -2. Okay, remember that when negative number is squared, we get a positive number. Positive number. So 5 plus 8 times -2 squared is 4, minus -2 times -2, positive 4. So 5 plus 32, so I said plus 4, 5 plus 36, 41. Simplify the exponential expression. So we have exponents in numerator and in denominator, and recall, if you have an exponent in the denominator, you can rewrite it in the numerator by switching the sign. Yes, if you so. So this fraction is equivalent to the product x cubed times x to the 5th. Or apply product rule. X cubed times x to the 5th is this. When we multiply two exponential function, we add the exponents 3 plus 5 or x to the 8th. So if we have, so it can be a product like x times x raised to the power -5th. Then we so we also, this is the product. So we add exponents. Exponent. The first exponent is 1. The second exponent -5 plus -5. 1 minus will be x to the power -4, or the same as 1 over x to the 4th. There will be 10 or 12 different variants for each problem, sometimes more. So everybody will get a little bit different variant of the exam. factor the trinomial. So many trinomials are easy to factor by trial and error, so that we try to find coefficients so that the product of these two coefficients is equal to the constant term, and the sum is equal to the linear coefficient. So the product must be negative 14. It can be 1 and 14, but we will first try 2 and 7. 2 and 7, and they must have different signs because we must get negative 14. So either negative 2 and 7 or negative 7 and positive 2. Okay, the sum must be negative 5. It means that we must take negative 7 and positive 2. Then the product is negative 14. And the sum, negative 7 plus 2, equals to negative 5. Okay, we have factored the trinomial. Multiply the complex numbers. You see, you have here complex conjugates, and either you remember that the product of complex conjugate is the sum of the squares of the coefficients, or you apply the difference of squares rule. So a plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. Yes, the exam will be open all day. So we have here sum times difference. We can write it as a difference of squares. In this case, a is 8 and b is 7i. So we have 8 squared minus 7i squared. 8 squared is 64 minus 7i squared, so 7 squared is 49, and I squared is negative 1. We have 64 plus 49. Negative times negative is positive. 60 plus 40 is 100. 4 plus 9 is 13. 114. Oh, 13, sorry. 113. Factor the difference of squares. We use the same formula for difference of squares. So first, let us write these two terms as squares. The first is 8 squared times x squared. The second is 9 squared. So then, if you compare with the formula above, then a is 8x and b is 9. So the difference is equal to 8x minus 9 times 8x plus 9. The absolute value equation. Okay, remember that if we have an equation absolute value of y equals 3, it means that y can be either 3 or y can be negative 3. The same for this equation. If 4x minus 7 equals 9, means that 4x minus 7 can be equal to 9, or 4x minus 7 can be equal to negative 9. We solve two equations and get two solutions. So when we solve an equation, we isolate x on one side of the equation. So let us add 7 to the right and to the left. We get 4x equals 16, and then we divide by 4 on the left and on the right. X equals 4. This is the first solution. And the second equation, we also add 7 on the left and on the right. 4x equals -9 plus 7. So they have different signs, so we subtract the values of 9 minus 7 is 2, so -2. And then we divide by 4. X equals -2 over 4. And we can simplify the fraction dividing by 2 in the numerator and in the denominator, and get -1/2. The second solution, so that we can write solution set with braces, is -1/2 and 4. When you write two answers in factorial, then don't use spaces, just comma, and that's all, without spaces. Okay, a compound inequality. Compound inequality. So we have x in the middle, so we will isolate x in the middle. So to isolate x, let us subtract 4 from each of 3 parts of the inequality. So we subtract 4 from -7, from the middle expression, and from 13. In the middle, we get x. On the left, we get -7 minus 4. So the numbers have the same sign, so we add the numbers. 4 plus 7 will be 11 with negative sign. And 13 minus 4 is 9. So I think here we must give the answer in interval notation. In interval notation, so we use parentheses when we have greater or less without equality, and we use square bracket for greater than and equal, or less than or equal. So in this case, we have a parenthesis on the left, so the interval from -11 to 9, and here we use square bracket. On a real number line, here we have 0, here -11, and here we have 9. The interval from -11 to 9, including 9 and not including -11. Okay, the questions, the exam question will have different form. Some of them are multiple choice, but not so many. For example, the next question with quadratic formula will have multiple choice form, so that it is hard to type on Blackboard square roots and so on. A couple of other questions will be also multiple choice, but many questions have fill in blank form, so that you will have to type your answer. Okay, so the quadratic formula will be given in this question. -b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. will be given inside of the question. So here, so to find the solution, we must first determine what is A. A is the leading coefficient, this is 1. What is B? B is the linear coefficient, the 7 here, and C equals to 4. Okay, then we substitute them into the formula. So negative B, negative 7 plus or minus B squared, 7 squared, which is 49, minus 4 times A is 1, times C is 4, and divided by 2 times A is 1. We will check for equivalent answers on the exam. I know the homework tends to only take one answer, even if what we put is equivalent. As far as I know, so I always check what you have typed, and because I always see typos, and I check for that. So if you instead of 5 or here, instead of 4 and negative 1/2, you will write x equals to 4 and x equals to negative 1/2. It's not a big problem. So but what concerning to Pearson, I understand, as I remember, it usually it checks, it is correct, and normally the answer is not quite equivalent. But maybe you are right. But in all the cases when I checked, then Pearson was right. So. And there was a difference, like with asymptotes, when we will start learning asymptotes, student types. Okay, the asymptote is 5, but the Pearson requires to write y equals to 5, because y equals to 5 is not the same as 5 in this case. Y equals to 5 is an equation of a line, and 5 is a number. So in the cases that I have seen, the student sent to me that Pearson was correct. So, but many students just don't email me when they have such problems. Okay, actually, concerning the Pearson, you know, there is a gear on the right of the screen. When you open your problem, there is a gear, and it has a lot of help resources like help me solve this or view an example, and the last option is email instructor. You can always email me. I will get the problem, and you can write what you don't understand, and then sorry, I don't know why my answer is wrong, and I can look at it. And it is always good when you send me a photo of your shown work or of your sketch paper, so that I can help you very quickly. Really, if you cannot solve a problem for half an hour, you can email me and I will help you to go through. Okay, but concerning the question, yes, I always look through all your answers, and I correct the grade if it is a typo or if it is an equivalent question, an equivalent form. Add or subtract as indicated. I think this will be a multiple choice, so that you don't have to type all these fractions. So we need, if it's add fractions, we need to find the least common denominator and write both fractions with this denominator. Okay, here we have 4 and x plus 8. And x plus 8 is present in both fractions, in the first fraction, and x plus 8 in the only in the second fraction, so that we can multiply the second fraction by 4, and then they both will have the same denominator. 4 over x plus 8. Here, the first fraction already has this denominator, so we keep the numerator without change. Here, be careful if there is a negative sign, don't forget about it. And the second fraction is multiplied by 4, the second numerator. So we have 3 times 4, 12x. So in this case, we cannot simplify it anymore. So maybe there will be something to simplify. Okay, the next question. Find the product or a fraction, or simplify a fraction. So, and here we have complex numbers. Here we have complex numbers. So, okay, and before you simplify, you must write this in terms of I. I times, so negative square root of -1 equals to I. So we write I instead of square root of -1, leaving only the real numbers under the square root. And another I times square root of 3x. And then we can multiply I times I, getting I squared. And we can apply the product rule, and write the numbers under the same square root. 48x times 3x. I squared is -1. And under the square root we have, well, let us factor. We want to simplify, so let us factor this. So 48 is 6 times 8, or we can write 2 times 3, and it is 2 times 4. So, and we have another 3 here. So we have the factors. So this is 4. We have 4 squared, and we have 3 and 3. 3 times 3 squared. And we also have x squared. So since all these numbers are positive, the square root of 4 squared is 4. The square root of 3 squared is 3. Square root of x squared is x. So since x is positive. And the answer will be -12x. The second example, in a different variant, you may have a fraction. So, and here also we first rewrite the expressions in terms of I, replacing -1 with I. I square root of 48x cubed divided by I times square root of 3x. We can cancel out I dividing by it. And then we can write these positive numbers. We can apply the quotient rule and write them under the same square root. 48x cubed divided by 3x. And then simplify. So in this fraction, we can divide numbers. 48 divided by 3 will be 16. X cubed divided by x. So you can write it as x3 minus the exponent 3 minus 1 x squared, or you can write it as x times x times x divided by x and cancel 1x, so but still x squared. So we get an absolute a square root of 16x squared, which is 4x, and again, since we had a square root of x here, it means that our x is positive, so we have the square root of x squared just equals to x, and not we don't need the absolute value bar. Okay. Solve the radical equation. In the PDF that I sent you yesterday, there was a typo. There was a minus here, I think. It was not possible to solve on this way. Okay, so radical equation. To solve this, we have to square this equation. And when we square the equation, raised to the second power, we can get extraneous solutions. That's why to check the solution is very important for this problem. Okay, let us square. Square root squared, we just remove the square root on the left. 5x plus 24. On the right, we get x squared. And now let us we have a quadratic equation. To solve a quadratic equation, first we collect all the terms on one side of the equation. So we bring these terms to the right. When we bring them to the other side of the equation, we change their signs. Or you can think about it like we subtract 5x and we subtract 24 from both sides of the equations. We get 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 24. Okay, now let us try to factor the equation. And first, we always try to factor the equation by trial and error. So let us check whether it works. We try to find two numbers that give negative 24 as a product and negative 5 as a sum. So 24 has factors 2 and 12, 4 and 6, 3 and 8. And to get a sum or different equal to negative 5, the best candidates are 3 and 8. So that the difference can be 5. So negative 20, the product is negative 24, means they have different signs. Good. Then the sum must be negative 5. So here must be minus and here must be plus. So x plus 3 and x minus 8 equals to 0. So don't skip this step, because the solutions are not 3 and negative 8, but negative 3 and 8. Yes. To find the two proposed solutions, we solve x plus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 8 equal to 0. So the first proposed solution is negative 3 and the second positive 8. And remember that we have squared the original equation, so we must check the solutions, each of them. So the first, square root of 5 times negative 3, negative 15 plus 24 equals to negative 3. Okay, square root cannot be equal to negative number. That's why it's not true. Let us check the second one. Square root of 5 times 8, 40, plus 24 equals to 8. 40 plus 24, 64 equals to 8. Square root of 64 is 8, so this is true. Okay, the solution set for this equation consists of one number, which is 8. Then we have a simple linear equation. So when we solve an equation, we isolate the term with variable on one side, and then we divide by the coefficient. Okay, we must subtract 21 on the left and on the right. So on the left we get 6x, on the right 63 minus 21, which is 42. So 6x equals 42, and we divide by 6 and get x equals to 7. The next problem, factor by grouping. So the first factor will be already, the first two factors will be already there. You must find the last factor and type it into the blank. So in this example, you see that all four numbers are divisible by 3, so that you can factor out 3. So we divide each coefficient by 3. It will be x to the 6th plus 2x to the 5th minus 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4x minus 24 divided by 3 is 8. Okay, then we want to group these four terms. Let us group them, the first two and the last two. Okay, we keep this 3. In the first two terms, we can factor out x to the power of 5, raised to the power of 5, since it's the lowest power. Okay, x to the 5th, x to the 6th divided by x to the 5th, 6 minus 5 will be just x. 2x to the 5th divided by x to the 5th will be 2 plus 2. In the second group, we can factor out negative 4 minus 4, and the rest is so negative 4x divided by negative 4 will be x. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 will be positive 2. And then we factor out this x plus 2 from each term. We will 3 times x plus 2. We factored it out, and the rest will be x to the 5th minus 4. X to the 5th minus 4. So this 3 is already written, this term is written, so that the not term factor. So the factor that we must write here will be x plus 2. Okay, and a couple more questions. So like a number raised to the power 1/2. So the power 1/2 means a square root, so we can rewrite it as square root of 144, which is 12. And one question for using a graph. Find intercepts and find the function values for given value of x. So the x-intercepts are the points when the graph intercepts the x-axis, and the y-intercept, so actually it tells find y-intercepts, but you must know that it can be more than one, so it can be only one y-intercept. So the x-intercept, when the graph intercepts the x-axis, So -1 and 1. The y-intercept is the point when the graph intercepts the y-axis, and let us ask a poll question now. So please find what is the y-intercept on this graph. -3, -3, 0. Okay, start. Okay, the question is, what is the y-intercept for this graph? The y-intercept is the value of y, the y value when okay, the point where the graph crosses the y-axis, you need to give the y value. Okay, thank you. I repeat, if you don't answer the quiz question, I remove your attendance points after 3 times that you do not answer the quiz question. If you have troubles with finding the quiz question, answering the quiz question, you should email me, because I don't count you present if you regularly do not answer the question, or if you regularly answer wrong. If you regularly answer wrong, it means for me you're just choosing answer randomly and you are not listening to me. Okay, so please try answer every quiz, and if you have a trouble to me with this, please email me and we will discuss this problem. Okay, thank you. Okay, so very good, you have answered very good. So this is the y-intercept, y equals to 3 or 3. And 2 more questions. So find f of -2 and f of 1. F of -2 means that x equals -2. Equals to -2. Let us locate this point on the graph. So this is on this line. We have x equal to -2, and it crosses the graph at that point. And that point f equals to -3. So the value of the y value is -3. The second question, f of 1. So we need to locate on the graph the point on the graph when x equals to 1. So on this line, x equals to 1, and it crosses the graph at the point on y-axis. On y-axis, all y values are equal to 0. So on this line, the equation of the horizontal axis is actually y equal to 0. This is the equation of the line. Okay, and returning to our question, when x equals to 0, then y equals to, when x equals to 1, then y equals to 0. So we can also find f of 0. So it means that x equals to 0. It is a vertical line. The point on the graph, the y value on this line is 3. Or let us find f of -1. When we look at the vertical line, when x equal to -1, then it crosses the graph at the point when y equals to 0. Okay. I think it was the last question on the review. So you see the exams were simple, especially when you're allowed to use a calculator. So the graphing calculators are not allowed, only scientific. It is already too much. So graphing calculators are not allowed. Okay, I have seen that not many students have taken the practice test yet. It is so. Please take it as soon as possible. This test is not for grade, but you will see how the questions look like. You will check whether your computer works with Proctora, and so it is very often that computers have trouble with, especially this Apple device, how they call it, MacBooks. So they often have troubles with Proctora. So I will not grade this practice test. I can look if you have. Can we use? I don't know exactly what does mean. It's better for you. Yes, you can use scientific calculate. I think it was my mistake but I have already allowed it before. So it is better for you to use an online calculator so that I see what you are using, and I don't have trouble with that. But if you can't, you must show your calculator to the screen. So, okay, returning to Proctorio. Proctorio will record your screen, and it first closes all the tabs, but then you are able to open them again, open your tabs. So that if you will need your email, because at the end of the exam you take a photo of your scratch paper, and upload your scratch paper with the last problem. And so how I'm doing this, I'll take a photo with the phone, then email the photo to myself, then open an email on computer. So maybe you have other possibilities to bring your image from the phone to computer, but it is how I'm doing this. And then you open your mail and upload the photo of your shown work to the computer. So if you are doing everything in your head, I don't agree with this, but I don't think that it is good. The more you write, the better. Can I use my iPad for scratch paper? I use it for now. Yes, you can use. It's not so good to use an iPod, because I don't know what you're opening there. So it's not a very good idea to use an iPad for exam, because it's the same thing as you are using the second computer. I understand that it's easier for you, but we must have some restrictions for exam. I hope you understand. Yes, better use paper. And when you start the exam, you first make a room scan. It is very helpful if you also scan your table. So Proctora asks you to make a room scan. it stops very quickly, but you can continue scanning your room after you're in the exam. So your camera is always on. It may be helpful when some students during the exam start lowering their head so that I don't see their head on the screen. It's very bad when I don't see your head. It's very bad, and I start thinking that I must reduce your grade till 50% and suspect you're cheating. So if you make a good room scan, it helps me to decide, okay, the student was completely alone, nothing there, nobody there, so it helps me to take the decision. And you have a small icon showing what is on the camera. Just keep an eye on it, so that when you are lying on your table, you must understand that I don't see you anymore on the video, and this is suspicious. Okay, so I highly recommend you to test Proctorio with a practice test. It's easy and quickly. There are 2 or 3 problems, one multiple choice, one fill in blank, and you will see how your answer looks like, how should you type it, and it will be very helpful for you. Okay, so, and don't forget to upload your file. So I use Desmos Scientific, and it is very convenient. I know the other students may use other calculators, but there is also a calculator inbuilt into the Proctorio. It will be also available. So for simple calculations, it's enough. This inbuilt calculator is enough. So for some complicated calculation, it's not very good, but for such as 6 times 8 or something like this, it will work. So you actually do not need any calculator. Okay, so the exam does not require a calculator, and it was actually my mistake allowing the scientific, but I will not take it back now. But actually you don't need a calculator at all. Okay, so any other questions? So you must start the test before midnight, and you'll have 19 minutes for it. The students who require an extension, then they are eligible for extension, will have more time. So I recommend to start the test earlier, just in case that there are 15 questions and 1 file upload question. So please start the exam before 10, at least before 10, because it often happens that because of bad connection, you lose the connection to the test and you must restart it, and you cannot restart the test without my intervention. I must open the second attempt, and if you lose connection, you must start the new test, and the Proctorio team will not help you. So you cannot restart it without me. And on some semester, most students have this trouble, sometimes less students have this trouble, but just in case that you need my assistance, start the exam before 10 p.m. The earlier the better. So, and every time, so I have a lot of students who need my help with Proctorio or with something else, and I must be available at the time. You can call me or email me during the exam. I usually answer relatively quickly when I'm at home at the computer, but who knows. Okay, and one more thing. I just forgot. Yes, one more thing. If Proctorio ask you for a password, it means that there's no password for Proctorio. It means that you must press on secure exam proctoring tool. There will be a button like this in the exam folder. Maybe you have seen it already. Just press on it, refresh your Proctorio extension, and that will be done. So there's no password. If it's asking for a password, just update your settings. Okay, and you can also chat with Proctorio. There is a chat. They answer very quickly if there is some trouble with technical trouble. Okay, I see that there are no more questions. If you have any question, just email me. And thank you and good luck on the exam.